Hi everyone. While I'm telling you the tragic story of Joseph Sonnier and Richelle Tina, a romance that began with a spark and ended in pain, I would like for you to gather around me. I would like for you to be here with me today. This is a narrative that will keep you yearning for more because it is so captivating and because it delves deeply into the lives of two incredible individuals and the unexpected turns of fate that brought them together and then ultimately tore them apart. Before we get into the meat of the matter, allow me to introduce you to Joseph Sonnier. Not only was Joseph well known for his copious riches, but he was also well known for his noble character. Joseph was a pathologist who was highly recognized. It was because of his knowledge and caring nature that he was the kind of person who demanded respect. As a consequence of this, he was a revered figure in both his professional and personal life. Richelle Tina, on the other hand, is a woman who is not only breathtakingly gorgeous, but also outstanding in the accomplishments that she has accomplished. Richelle, who was almost 10 years younger than Joseph, demonstrated both charm and ambition to the utmost extent possible on numerous occasions. She had established a successful career for herself, and throughout the course of her career, she was famous for her poise and determination. She had carved out a fantastic career for herself. In July of 2011, they were attending a dancing lesson when they unexpectedly came into contact with one another. This was the first time they had previously met. During the time when Joseph and Richelle were in the middle of the music and dancing, they became aware of the fact that they were being drawn to one another. It was a desire shared by both of them to incorporate some rhythm into their lives. What was initially a routine dance session suddenly developed into a whirlwind romance that captivated the hearts of everyone who knew them. The journey of Joseph Sonnier began in the charming city of Shreveport, which is situated in the state of Louisiana, in the year 1955. Beginning at an early age, Joseph had the dream of becoming a physician and sporting a white coat in his professional life. The idea of him working in the medical area was quite appealing to him. With unwavering determination, he worked toward achieving his objectives, and as a consequence, he earned a Bachelor of Science degree from the University of Baton Rouge. Continuing his education at Louisiana State University, where he had already completed his medical studies, was the next stage in his educational journey towards becoming a physician. Quality and dedication were the defining characteristics of Joseph's early phases of his professional career. For the duration of his employment at Parkland Hospital, he was promoted to the position of chief resident, which provided him with the opportunity to perfect his skills and cultivate his reputation. After some time had passed, he determined to make Lubbock, Texas, his permanent residence. It was there that he became a pathologist who was held in very high esteem. His work in the field earned him admiration from both his colleagues and the patients he treated, which led to his rise to prominence in the field of medicine. He became a famous figure in the international medical community. Joseph, on the other hand, experienced a roller coaster of emotions as a result of his private life. A difficult divorce brought an end to his marriage, which had lasted for 27 years. His marriage had been a source of sorrow for him. Becky, who had been his wife in the past, found herself embroiled in a new romantic relationship that ultimately ended in devastating circumstances. As a result of Becky's new husband taking her own life, Joseph was left to face with the devastating loss of his wife and the duty of providing care for their sons while they were going through the unimaginable catastrophe. The resilience and strength that Joseph shown during this time period were nothing short of extraordinary. In spite of the mayhem that was taking place, he was able to provide his family with a sense of safety and peace, i.e., in a similar manner, Tina's life was full of excitement and complication, as Richelle pointed out. Her career as an executive in the National Football League (NFL) was successful, and it was in that capacity that she demonstrated her abilities in the areas of executive leadership and business management. On the other hand, when she met Mike Dixon in 2008, her personal life saw a significant transformation for the better with a significant improvement. Over the course of their relationship, which was marked by tremendous feelings of passion and conflict, Richelle eventually found herself in a condition of sadness. This was a consequence of their relationship. Richelle relocated to Lubbock in an effort to provide herself with a new environment free of Dixon's obsessive behavior. The decision to relocate was made by her in an effort to achieve peace and to initiate the process of reestablishing her life in a manner that was free from the shadows created by her previous relationship. The strength and tenacity that Richelle possessed remained unwavering as she sought to write a new chapter in her life, despite the challenges that she met along the way. Following the introduction of Joseph Sonnier and Richelle Tina into each other's lives, the connection between the two individuals eventually blossomed into a significant romantic bond between them. A new light was brought into Joseph's life by Richelle, whose beauty and vivacity breathed fresh light into his existence. This new light was brought about by Richelle. With his polished mind and noble demeanor, Joseph was able to find a companion in Richelle who was a captivating individual. The fact that Joseph's family and friends were able to see the joy that Richelle brought into his life resulted in their immediate acceptance and admiration of their relationship, which in turn expedited the development of their partnership. It was when the couple traveled to Los Angeles that their love story reached its pinnacle and reached its highest peak. The proposal that Joseph made to Richelle took place against the backdrop of the city's romantic allure, and it was a moment that was immortalized by their declarations of love on social media. People from the couple's family and friends got together to celebrate the couple's engagement, and they were filled with pleasure as they looked forward to the bright future that lies ahead for them. The freshly acquired joy that Richelle experienced, on the other hand, was not generally favorably received by everyone. It was Mike Dixon, who had been Richelle's lover in the past, who was struggling with an infatuation that would not go away. Because Dixon's own marriage had ended in divorce, he got fixated on the relationship he had in the past with Richelle. This led to his obsession with the relationship, in spite of the fact that he was unable to comprehend the fact that she had gone on with her life. He continued to follow and bother her, which resulted in his fixation becoming increasingly unpleasant. The level of alarm that was caused by Dixon's activities reached a very high level. During the course of his surveillance, Richelle was the focus of his attention, and he proceeded to keep a careful eye on everything she did. Her efforts to begin a new life with Joseph were impeded by his continual harassment, which cast a fog of discouragement over her endeavors. Her efforts were hampered because of his ongoing harassment. Although she made an effort to put some distance between herself and Dixon, his fixation remained to be a continuous risk, a ticking time bomb in the seemingly ideal love story that they presented to each other. Despite her efforts, Dixon's fixation continued to be a persistent danger. In Lubbock, Texas, the tranquility that had existed for the preceding few days was shattered when the awful discovery of the lifeless corpse of Joseph Sonnier was made on the morning of July 11, 2012. Joseph's body was found in his home, and it was a horrifying scene. He had been brutally murdered, as evidenced by the number of gunshot and stab wounds that were found on his body. In spite of the fact that it was prepared in a quick and incompetent manner, which instantly raised suspicions about the underlying reason behind the crime, the initial appearance gave the impression that the crime was a robbery. Throughout the course of the investigation, Richelle Tina provided extremely valuable insights regarding the odd occurrences that led up to the murder. She described the persistent stalking and harassment that she had experienced at the hands of Mike Dixon, the individual who had been her lover in the past. Both of these incidents had occurred. According to the investigators, Dixon was further implicated as a consequence of Richelle's detailed account of Dixon's compulsive behavior, which presented a clear picture of a man who was unable to let go of the past. This led to the investigators' conclusion that Dixon was responsible for the investigation. The situation became more convoluted as additional women came out with their accounts of having difficult connections with Joseph. Because each of these women had their own story to tell about their interactions with Joseph, more layers of convincing reasons that were fueled by jealousy and retaliation were added to the account. As a consequence of these discoveries, the scope of the investigation was broadened, and the detectives worked hard to try to piece together the intricate network of personal contacts that Joseph had. Even though there was a growing body of circumstantial evidence that pointed in his direction, Mike Dixon continued to staunchly maintain his alibi. He claimed that he was in a different state at the time of the murder, and the statements made by witnesses as well as the records of his travels offered evidence to support his claim. Because his involvement, despite being highly suspected, remained unverified, investigators were compelled to investigate every conceivable suspect in their search of justice for Joseph Sonnier. This was done in order to ensure that Joseph Sonnier would receive full justice. The investigation took a number of unexpected turns and twists, which served as a representation of the complexities of human relationships and the shadowy undercurrents that are sometimes linked with the dynamics of partnerships. A significant improvement occurred in the investigation when Paul Reynolds, who was known to both Joseph Sonnier and Mike Dixon, came forward with information that was essential to the investigation. This was a significant turning point in the case. This signified a substantial change in the direction that the inquiry was heading. According to Reynolds, Dave Shepard, a notorious criminal with a history of violent crimes, had confessed to him about his role in the murder of Joseph because of his involvement in the crime. This was because of the fact that Reynolds was involved in the crime. She has a history of committing crimes that involved physical violence. In light of the fact that Shepard's past was replete with violent acts, it is reasonable to draw the conclusion that he was part in the violent acts that took place in the past. Reynolds' admission that Shepard had a direct encounter with Mike Dixon was a hint that led to a more basic storyline. This signal was also provided by the fact that the revelation was made. A clue to the story was offered by this discovery, which is one of the reasons why it is particularly noteworthy. Following a substantial amount of investigation, Dave Shepard eventually gave in and admitted that he was involved in the criminal activity. He did this when he was put under heavy scrutiny. However, he admitted that he was a participant in the criminal activity. He revealed the information that Mike Dixon had recruited him to perform the task of removing Joseph Sonnier from his position within the company. He went into considerable detail about the evil scheme that they had devised, and Shepard was very specific about it. To begin, they intended to trash Joseph's reputation in order to put some space between him and Richelle. This was done with the objective of putting some gap between them. In spite of the fact that they were unsuccessful in their attempts to smear Dixon's reputation, he made the matter more worse, ultimately leading to a resolution that was fatal. Shepard admitted to breaking into Joseph's apartment and staging the heist in a manner that was intended to fool the authorities. He also admitted that he had committed the crime. Additionally, he stated that he had undertaken this action on purpose. As part of his confession, he provided specifics regarding the manner in which he carried out the horrific assault in accordance with Dixon's directives in order to guarantee Joseph's demise. As a result of the confession, the investigators were able to establish a connection between Dixon and the murder. This was made possible by the fact that the confession allowed them to make the essential link that they need. Using this information, it also revealed the horrifying lengths that Dixon was willing to go to in order to restore his obsessive control over Richelle. This was all revealed through the usage of this information. This conclusion not only shed light on the underlying cause for the terrible murder of Joseph, but it also brought to light the perilous depths of Dixon's infatuation with the victim. Both of these items were important in their own right. When the entire confession and the information that was revealed regarding the hired hit were made public, it was a significant turning point in the case. Because of these events, those who were grieving the death of Joseph Sonnier were able to find some sense of resolution. This was made possible by the fact that those guilty for the horrible deed were brought to justice. This intricate legal drama began with the arrest of Mike Dixon and Dave Shepard, which marked the beginning of the story. The story could be said to have started with this arrest. After the prosecution made a convincing argument against both of the defendants at the preliminary trial, the court decided that both of them were guilty of the charges against them. He was promised a life sentence in exchange for his testimony against Dixon, and Shepard agreed to the conditions of the arrangement after he admitted to having committed the crime. He was offered the opportunity to testify against Dixon. Furthermore, he admitted that he was acting in the character of Dixon, in addition to claiming that he had been recruited to kill Joseph Sonnier. In addition to that, he supplied in-depth accounts of Dixon's participation in the incident. Despite the fact that Shepard presented information that was exceedingly harmful, Dixon fiercely denied any role in the incident. Shepard gave testimony that was extremely destructive. Both the circumstantial evidence and the speech of a convicted felon were not considered to be reliable sources of information, according to the defense, which contended that the case against Dixon was founded on these particular pieces of evidence. They were able to accomplish this by taking advantage of the fact that there was no direct physical evidence linking Dixon to the crime scene. This allowed them to accomplish their goal. Due to the fact that the jury was unable to arrive at a judgment that was acceptable to all of the members of the group, the trial was declared a mistrial and the jury was unable to come to a decision. The prosecution did not give up and continued to demand a retrial in an effort to ensure that Joseph Sonnier would be granted justice. This was done in an effort to guarantee that Joseph Sonnier would be granted justice. At the second trial, the prosecution presented additional evidence and more persuasive arguments, which enabled them to go further into the technical aspects of the case and provide a more comprehensive analysis of the situation. During the second trial, the prosecution also presented additional evidence. With Shepard's testimony and the weight of the circumstantial evidence, the jury arrived at the judgment that Mike Dixon was guilty of first-degree murder this time around. Shepard's testimony was also taken into consideration. Immediately, Dixon's legal team submitted an appeal, arguing that there were mistakes in the procedure and that there was insufficient evidence to back their stance. They also stated that they were appealing the decision. The decision to temporarily release Dixon on bail was met with a significant deal of criticism throughout the period that the appeal was being assessed and evaluated. As a consequence of this decision, which was controversial, there was a great deal of outrage. In spite of this, the Office of the Prosecution did not show any signs of hesitance and instead submitted a motion to reinstate Dixon's life sentence. Moreover, the appeal was ultimately rejected, and Dixon was sentenced to serve the remaining period of his life sentence in jail without the prospect of being eligible for parole before being released. As a result of the reinstatement of his sentence, the community and individuals who had been greatly touched by the tragic death of Joseph Sonnier were able to feel a sense of closure following the situation. In light of the fact that his sentence was reinstated, this was made possible. It was possible. The court procedures brought to light both the uncompromising pursuit of justice and the commitment to bring those responsible for their crimes accountable for their acts. Both of these things were brought to light during the course of the proceedings. Mike Dixon is currently serving a sentence of life in prison without the possibility of release as a consequence of the fact that he participated in activity that was not only compulsive, but also had the potential to be possibly lethal. Because of his actions, he is now having to deal with the consequences. The scars that he has left behind are profound and will continue to be felt for a very long time, despite the fact that his punishment provides some type of justice for the awful loss of Joseph Sonnier for whom he was responsible. Richelle Tina continues to struggle with a tremendous lot of grief and remorse over the events that devastated her life and took away her real love. This is despite the fact that she continues to deal with these sentiments, despite the fact that she is strong and resilient. Her life has been completely thrown into disarray as a direct result of the events that have taken place. As a tragic love tale that is defined by jealousy and obsession, the narrative of Joseph Sonnier and Richelle Tina is a description of a dreadful affair that is so awful that it is described as a sad love story. It is a terrible love story. That is the story. Two people who were brought together by coincidence but ultimately get estranged from one another are at the center of the plot, which is driven by a terrible obsession on one another. The plot concentrates on two people who are thrown together by chance. The narrative illustrates the significance of being resilient in the face of terrible suffering, despite the fact that their lives were filled with pessimism throughout that time period. As a result of this case, which caused shockwaves that are still being felt to this day, the community as a whole was subjected to a profound impact that was felt across the whole community. This influence was felt by everyone in the community. As a result of the sudden and brutal manner in which he passed away, his family and friends were left in complete and utter astonishment. They went through a tremendous deal of grief as they sought justice for their loved one. Additionally, as a result of the occurrence, the community was left in a state of shock because they were unable to believe the reality that such a horrible crime could take place in their midst. This had the effect of leaving the town in a state of shock. In spite of the passage of time, Richelle continues to find comfort and anguish in the memory of Joseph. This is despite the fact that much time has passed. He was the one and only love of her life, a shining example of compassion and eminence whose life was tragically cut short. He was the only love she ever had. His affection was the only one she ever had for a lover. As a poignant reminder of the precarious nature of happiness and the devastating repercussions that may result from an addiction that is not appropriately handled, the time that they spent together acts as a potent reminder for Richelle. Specifically, this is due to the fact that the time they spent together serves as a persuasive reminder. The unending affection that she has for Joseph and the enormous influence that he has had on her life are both examples of the enduring strength of love, even in the face of sorrow. His influence on her life has been enormous. Thank you for watching. I recommend our other crime videos.